You need to understand how privileged you are to be able to own any piece of the rock in the Bahamas. It doesn't matter where it is. Like literally, we are a sought after region in the world.
There's a growing concern and a growing call for the government to do something about rent. Like where you see rent is, I don't want to say getting out of control, but
I think the biggest thing that people underestimate is the cost of maintenance. And you don't realize it until you get into it.
What is one uncomfortable truth about real estate in the Bahamas that more Bahamians need to hear? Before we get into the show, let me ask you something. If you're interested in money, technology, AI, and digital opportunities for Bahamians, why are you still watching from the sideline? Follow CryptoNoobz, subscribe to the channel, and join our community of curious-minded people who want to know how the world is changing and how they can benefit from it. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Welcome back to this week's episode of the CryptoNoobz podcast, where we talk about money, tech, and opportunities for Bahamians. I'm your host, Nelson Ricardo, and I'm joined here with my co-host,
Lamont Aswad, aka Lambo.242.
And on this episode, we're going to be talking about how is it that you as a Bahamian could get your house? How is it that you could qualify for a house? And how is the housing market here in the Bahamas? And we're joined with our guest for tonight, Miss Rothia Ferguson Victor, a real estate agent, property manager, and rental specialist. Rothia, how are you doing?
I'm great. I am very happy that and grateful that you guys considered to invite me on your show today.
Yes. And we are happy to have you. We are so happy to have you. Yeah. So, Ruthia, let's jump into it. You know, as Bahamians, a lot of us have this on our mind, which is, you know, how is it that we could finally be able to afford our first homes, starter homes, especially us in the younger set, you know? So this episode is definitely going to be dedicated to that. So first and foremost, for those who may not know you, you know, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do?
Sure. So I am a real estate agent with Realty Solutions Bahamas Limited. It's a small boutique real estate firm. I'm also a property manager, a rental mediator. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm a rental specialist, meaning that my specialty is rental properties, either renting or selling, and assisting my clients in purchasing rental properties with returns.
Awesome. And what kind of clients do you usually work with?
As of late, predominantly has been more investment clients, property owners, and I've had an influx of first-time home buyers recently.
That's nice. That's wonderful there.
Yeah, so picking up on that, what you said as far as like first-time home buyers, can I ask you, I don't know if you're allowed to disclose this, what is the demographic of the average home buyer, if you would love that information?
It depends. Your first-time home buyer, their first time, so their average is a little lower than somebody who would be like a second-time purchaser or like a novice investor. But generally, most first-time home buyers are under 300,000. A huge percentage of them under 300,000. You have some who are able to do 450, 500, but that's a smaller section of the market of buyers at this time.
All right. Yeah, because that's a question I get asked as far as like whenever the topics come up, is like property sales, especially. A lot of people they want to know like, okay, what is the average age as well as nationality? Some people want to know the nationality of the individuals buying property
Right.
in the Bahamas. That's something that has been topic of conversation. So I'm glad we have someone on the podcast who definitely give more insight into that.
Right. I mean, as far as the nationalities, it's broad, it's mixed. Our market is a hot market, so anybody and everybody who can purchase, they're trying to purchase now. I mean, we have Jamaicans who live in the U.S. who want to purchase here. Of course, you have the Americans, the Europeans, Canadians, even Africans. Chinese want to purchase there. Our market is very attractive.
Hmm. So when you look at the Bahamian real estate market, like what is the honest state right now? Like
Right now, we are in, I would say, we're in somewhat of a crisis because the inventory is low at any price point. So even if you have millions of dollars to spend, your inventory is low. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have like a huge amount of options. It's just a tight inventory at this time. So you have a lot of people in the market looking to purchase, and it's taking longer for them to find something just because the inventory is lower than most people would expect. And then also, you found that a lot of things that are on the market now are priced at appraised value. So whereas you could have purchased with a high equity, you're not realizing those equities anymore because a lot of properties are selling at market price and sometimes over market price because the market is somewhat emotional, especially if it's in a sought after area. It's very competitive, and then sometimes you're competing with multiple cash offers. So that kind of knocks out the person who was doing funding. Because of course, if I'm a seller, my preference would be somebody who has the cash who can close fast.
Uh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Like when you said that the inventory is low, could you explain that just a bit more? Because at least like I'm always seeing inside the newspaper various properties and what's not available for sale or what's not. And then you're always seeing on Facebook or wherever there's ads that there's like a whole bunch of property for sale, but you're saying that it's low. Could you just break that down just a bit more for those who might not
Okay,
understand?
so normally when you see a property on the market, sometimes it's under contract, sometimes it's under accepted offer. So just because the property is on the market does not mean that it's available. It may be along the sale process. So if I'm selling a property and if I'm under contract with a buyer and I'm waiting on financing, I wouldn't take my property off of the market until I would have realized the funds in my account.
Mm,
So generally you'd still see the listing posted as it is available, and then a lot of times it's not. So as an agent, you generally don't remove the listing until the sale is closed because in a lot of instances, sometimes the sale does not close. Sometimes
Mm,
the person does not get financing. And then usually when a new listing comes out, it's so active. You kind of run through a large percentage of buyers in a short amount of time. Like today, I had an investment client, and his budget is huge, and we're having challenges finding options for him. He was like, "Hey, what's going on with the market? I don't know what's happening." I said, "It's just limited," and he's looking everywhere.
wow.
He's looking everywhere.
yeah, that is interesting.
And then it also puts persons who are at the lower spectrum of a qualification, the 300,000, it puts them in a very hard position because a lot of them get discouraged because they be searching for years, literally years, and not able to find what they're looking for. And or even get discouraged with the sale process because sometimes like a lot of things happen along the way that would discourage you. So usually if I get a buyer that's under 250, I wouldn't take them on as a buyer. If I have something, I'll send it to them. But I generally would point them in the direction of the government offerings because the average person, if it's my first home, I'm thinking I want HD TV, I want it tricked out. And generally, when you're under that 300,000 threshold, you kind of have to make certain compromises to get what you want if you're looking to purchase in an established subdivision. So you tend to get a better bang for your buck if you go with the government subdivisions. And then you have some buyers that they don't want to be caught dead in the government subdivision. So I'm like, hey, hold on, let's be realistic here. So I'll show them what's on the market. This is where you want to be. This is what it's going to cost. Yeah, this house says it's 280, but it's going to cost you 150K in renovations. This you still won't be able to qualify for financing. So when they look at all of it rather than just what's the asking price of the house, they tend to feel like, okay, I think maybe I need to make a government offering my first stop and build up my equity and then move on from there. And then also you have Awak Homes, who has been helping many Bahamians establish home ownership. They also do in-house financing. So you could go to Awak Homes, you could give like $1,000 and you could get a lot, you
Yeah,
know? So I mean, um people say the pricing is higher, but I mean, they're basically the only developer that has inventory. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, I understand that. Let's say if you're talking to an individual, the average Bahamian, right? The average Bahamian, they arrange a meeting with you. Now, you say you don't like to take them under a certain threshold.
I don't commit them to me under a certain threshold, only because I know I would be doing them a disservice because of how low the inventory is. And I'm like, listen, if you find something with another agent in that price point, by all means, call the agent. I don't want to do anything to deter you or from being able to make a purchase. So no, I will not hold them hostage.
All right, I got you. I got you.
Mhm.
Because what I basically want to ask, I think you did mention like how some of them get discouraged when people are looking for homes and all that. Do you think I don't like to use the word impossible, but do you think it's generally harder to purchase a home? Because like, you know how they say like our parents and grandparents, they could use their lunch money and buy a piece of property. The reality is property price, like salaries are just not keeping up. That's just the reality of the situation. As crazy as it sounds, like it's just.
Yeah, I don't think any of us prepared for the property values we presently have in the Bahamas. I don't think anybody prepared for the appreciation that we've experienced.
Yeah, because it does like it starts to feel like a lot of people, if I want to buy property in the next, let's say 2 to 5 years, where do I go? Is there something it doesn't make sense that I even strive for? Or is it just that unrealistic that I just
It's very realistic. It's just not overnight. It's not as easy as it used to be. Now you actually have to plan. You have to put a savings plan in place. You have to either establish credit or fix your credit because credit rating is a huge part of your loan process now, application process. So you may have good credit now, but let's just say the bank decide that they want to get your credit report and your bank that say you got a loan from 6-7 years ago and they decide that, hey, you didn't pay me, I think I can put this on your credit report. You may not know about it. When they do the searches, it's like, oh, you want this bank?
that's through CRIF, right? CRIF Bahamas or something.
Right. So in a lot of
Mhm.
instances, people would start the process, find out about these loans that they thought that it were defunct or they thought that they no longer had to satisfy. And it's like, no, 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 no. You need to go to the bank. You need to work it out,
Yeah,
pay down, and then and then come back to me.
I got
So
you.
that's why a lot of people have been interested in renting to own
Mhm.
because it puts them in a position where they're able to get the house right away without going through all the red tape of the larger deposit, the bank financing. So it just allows them to be able to have an immediate need of getting a place to stay and working towards owning where they live.
All right.
So that actually just came from learning more about CRIF, right? I think his name is Dwight from RBC, who basically spoke
Okay.
about.
Mr. Burrows.
Yes, Dwight
Okay,
Burrows. Yes,
okay.
yes. Just came from having a wonderful conversation with him. And he'd actually explained to us about CRIF. And when he was explaining CRIF, he also said, don't quote me on this, but I believe CRIF offers at least one free credit report before you have to pay for the other ones, at least one free credit report.
$14.50.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that is something, especially for the audience, you could look into if you just want to see like where you are at with your credit report. But earlier you had spoken about, the whole process that people go through when it comes to home ownership. And I feel as if, a lot of Bahamians are dying to understand this. Like, what is the process? Like, what is the whole process of home ownership? And how do you put yourself in a favorable position to qualify for a home?
Okay. Firstly, before you even go there, it's mental. Literally, you have to make up in your mind that I want to make a home purchase and I'm going to do what it takes or what is required to successfully purchase a home. And then you go ahead and you put your plan in place. So, firstly, I would say find out what your buying power is. Because ain't nothing like saving money. And then when you go to the bank say to you, yeah, you have 100K saved, but I can only lend you 80K. So you thinking, I have 100K saved, this bank lend me 80K, I only could get 180, but the house you want costs 450. So I would say get pre-qualified first to find out what your buying power is. You could determine at that time, hey, am I going to accept this number that they give me, or am I going to raise my income, come back in a couple of months to put myself in a position where I can qualify for more? And that's why I always tell people that's where to start, because that can be a very humbling experience. Like, very humbling. So once you get beyond that point, the banker would tell you, hey, if you want to get this particular house that costs this amount, and we qualify you for this, or you need to be making this amount to be able to qualify for this, you work towards it, and then you save your money. Now, as of late, the requirements for a deposit has been reduced. I think like by 2%, 2 to 3%. Before, you would have had to have like about 20 to 22% of your entire purchase price plus repair. So you would have had to have that total amount of your loan, not just the purchase price, because remember, you could purchase a house, right? But then again, you also need to, all depending on what condition it's in, you need to make repairs. So that is calculated off of your total amount that you're borrowing. And now you can get away between 16 and 18%, all depending on the financial institution you decide to get your funding from. Now, I will tell people, especially persons who have had challenges with traditional banks, Canadian banks, try the credit union. You have national workers. They're very flexible. You have the credit union on Rosetta Street. I've had clients who previously were not able to qualify with a commercial bank, that they were able to qualify with them. And their system is way different from how the banks qualify you. You also have the police credit union, where I've seen a lot of people have been getting funding from. But of course, you actually put money in there first to be able to borrow. But the good part about it is, once they tell you get the loan, it's almost a guarantee that you get it. Versus taking your chances with the commercial banks, spending your money on the appraisal and all that stuff, I would say just shop around. Also, the insurance companies, Family Guardian, I found that their approval process is fast. They don't slunk. You can get approval for them within 7 to 14 days, versus you have the commercial banks but taking 45 days, 60 days. It just varies. And then you do all of that, and then someone will say to you, well, your company is kind of new. Seriously? I qualify, I make enough, but the company I work for is new. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of variables.
Yeah, because I am in no way, shape, or form trying to defend the banks, right? But a lot of people don't realize it's just really like mitigation of risk on their end. Is really the law of averages when you think about it. Like when you have different people coming on your job, that's why like for a lot of times they don't allow you to take out a salary deduction unless you've been on your job like 6 months. They want to know you have some sort of stability and stuff like that. Because ultimately, when you borrow from the bank, they're actually investing in you. You are an investment, and they want to make sure they're making a sound investment. And that's where you get into like actuary stuff, and they want to, know like, all right, what, especially like with insurance companies, that's why they
Right.
give certain rates to people of certain ages, height, stuff like that, medical history, all that they have taken into consideration. But I've seen especially during election season, right? And I don't want to carry this off a tangent, but you've seen like the government announcing like a lot of concessions regarding first time ownership, duplexes, stuff like that. Do you think that's going to make like real change or real of an uptick in as far as like home purchases and construction and stuff like that?
I definitely feel as if it immediately relieved persons who were already putting themselves in a position to purchase,
Mm,
where they were able to save on closing costs.
mm,
I think before they made the announcement, the exemption threshold was at 5, and then they increased it to 600,000. So of course that would give relief to somebody who's buying a home up to 600,000. But then again, how many first-time home owners
Good for
qualify for 600,000? So for the ones that do, hey, more power to you. Great. The concession on multifamily property, definitely it's a plus. Especially when it comes to the real property tax, will you be able to get a lesser rate of real property tax for your property if it's owner occupied? I think that's game changing, because real property tax could be a little tricky, especially if you have not been paying it, because it adds up. you know? So any concession given, I think it's a plus. What I'm really interested in knowing more about would be the loans that they're willing to give persons, the small home loans for repairs. I think that would be a game changer because there's a lot of people who have properties, especially older people, retirees, man, like they need help that they're not able to maintain or they need money to update. So it would be really interesting to see how the government frames that particular offering because I think that would be beneficial to many people.
I got you.
So I remember I saw you post this. One property could buy the next. Do you remember that?
Yes. And it has happened. I've seen it happen many times. Many
So
times.
I would like for you to explain that, right? And explain how that would work in simple terms for someone who has no idea about housing.
Okay. So in order for it to work, you'd have to buy a property that's going to appreciate fast. Meaning that when you go into a purchase, one or two things has to happen. You're getting at a good price. One, two, you're purchasing in an area that's going to be so in demand that the values is going to soar. So let me give you an example, like Charlottesville. When those properties first came on the market, I know persons who were purchasing at 80K, 100,000, 10, 12 years ago. Now those lots are at 550. Right.
Wow.
So you would have to purchase in an area that's going to have a high appreciation rate. Now, generally speaking, if you have a good relationship with your agent, you get an agent, they could basically guide you on what areas that they think will have a high appreciation rate and where they think the better returns would be. Like, for example, I know a lot of people stray away from Pinewood,
Yeah.
right?
Swamp
I
land.
had a client who purposely,
Yeah,
during
right.
the pandemic, went after Pinewood properties.
That's nice.
Purposely, because she was able to get properties for under 80K. So what she'd do is purchase, renovate, and rent. She doesn't really care about a resale value because at the end of the day, she's getting her money back from the rental return. But those same properties today, if she decides that she wants to sell, she could use the equity into it to go towards something else. So basically, you use the equity in your first purchase to cover or to defray a percentage of your second purchase or third purchase.
All right.
But you would have to make a decision on buying a really good property where you're going to be able to get equity from fast.
I got you. Do your company of analysts and all that who actually like give, I don't want to say a credit rating, but like a score on certain areas or something?
It varies because the agent actually has to be aware of the trends of what's happening in the location
I got you.
and in the area. And that's not a guarantee because you're going to get that with every agent. Because, a lot of people have different specialties.
And see, I can imagine it's difficult too. Like, let's compare property to stocks, right? You can see how much a stock is selling for every day, all day, right? Properties don't sell that much. So it's really kind of hard to gauge the average transaction.
Not necessarily. Because if you look at the industry trends and the location, let's just say you have a developer that has properties in a particular area, you look at, okay, what the ground preparation was like, what properties in the area are renting for presently. You look at what the rents that they're promising, and you're like, hold on, you're promising this amount of rent, but homeboy here now and only getting this amount of rent. You could tell, like,
Yeah.
if they're over promising, like,
Mm,
the agent just has to know the market. They just have to know the market.
I got
But
you.
you can kind of predict what locations are going to like blow up fast by watching what the surrounding developments have done.
I got you.
I do have a question. What locations do you think are just underestimated?
You want me to be honest with you? From a rental return perspective, I would say we are presently undergoing a lot of regentrification in a lot of areas. You'd be very shocked to see. So, Angliston values have soared in the last 2 to 3 years. Yes, soared. 3 years ago, you could have got an Angliston property for 60K. Now, you're looking at 90, 100, 200. I talking about just vacant land, not. And I always assume, like, why are these people building with no parking? They're getting rent. Now the challenge is with those areas, unfortunately, they're paying the same price of building supplies as everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, they may save a little here and there on labor because the contractor may give them a break, but they're paying that same high building costs, you know, which is leading to a lot of the rental prices being higher than usual. Because even though you may be in an area where rent was synonymously known for being lower, you're still paying the same cost as everybody else who's billing out west or out east. You know, another area that a lot of people sleep on, I would say Chippingham, the Constitution Drive area. Of course, you know, Carmichael is Carmichael, but Carmichael West has Carmichael West beyond Gladstone Road has the values there have soared. You have like Opulent Heights, you have Boatswain Hill, Coral Harbor. You know, they're not, you know, upper middle class, all depending on what it is that you're looking for. Of course, West to West. Everybody want to be West, you know?
Everybody.
Most people just want to be West.
Yeah.
Me, I'm an Eastern girl. There's nothing about West that appeals to me because I need land, I need space, and I know the possibility of me getting that West is low. And if I get it, I'm gonna be spending a really pretty penny. A pretty penny.
Oh, these is flood a lot, man.
Says who?
Plus it's so
It doesn't.
And
Who
these is
told you
flood a
that?
lot. No. That's
No.
the thing, you know?
No, it depends on where you go in the East. No, all East doesn't flood. It just depends on where.
So for a young Bahamian who wants to own property, right? Now, keep in mind, this is their first property, and they probably using whatever money it is that they had to just scrape by with, right? Should they be thinking about a first home, a rental unit, land, fixer upper, or something else? We need to understand the strategies to get up in life.
I say get in where you fit in.
Get in where
And
you-
that is going to be based upon your pockets and, again, what your buying power is.
Mhm.
If you qualify for 30K, I say go on an island, buy yourself a lot, save up another 30K, and right away put on one bedroom. A little one bed cottage, a one bed studio, so the property can start paying you. That's 60K. You ain't gonna get that in Nassau. You're not gonna get a one bedroom on a lot anywhere in Nassau.
Mhm.
You know, and then also the building codes on some of the islands are a little more relaxed, so you may be able to get away with building a little cheaper and still being able to get a rental income. So I always say get in where you fit in. Don't get discouraged. If your budget is only 60K, understand that it ain't gonna be in Nassau. But if you're prepared to be flexible on your location and you just want to start building up your portfolio, I would say keep an open mind.
Mhm. And I think that this needs to be said, right? And I prefer for you to explain it to our audience, right? So a lot of people have this complaint who don't really know anything about houses or just might not have the knowledge, right? They say, okay, if I'm already paying this amount for rent, and you might already know where I'm going with this. I'm paying this amount for rent and a mortgage would possibly be less. Why is it that I just can't go and get me a mortgage if I've proven that I am paying X amount for rent each month on a consistent basis without any faults or anything like that?
Because again, we are subject to the banking rules, you know? And as Lambo said earlier, it's about risk. You know, it's a numbers game. So even though you're able to pay your rent, sometimes when the bank looks at what your take home salary is, they consider, okay, hold on, this person makes $2,500. Her rent is $1,500, which means that after rent, she only leaves with $1,000, and then she got to pay insurance. She got to buy food.
I think it is like a debt to income ratio, like 40 or
Correct.
45% or something like that.
Correct. It's 45%, 40 or 40. It depends on the institution. In a lot of instances, your rent is already way past your debt service ratio.
Mm-hmm.
I understand.
So,
I got you.
and I have to follow up with this, right? All right, then cool. You could only go and purchase what you could get. I was not. Let's just say I'm on the lower end. I can't afford no 100K lot or property here in Nassau, and I know Nassau is like a hot spot. What island do you think is like the best case scenario if you just don't have it like that, but you have something? You have something and you want to start something. What island would you recommend people look into, or islands?
Abaco, Eleuthera, they would be my go-tos. Because Abaco and Eleuthera have independent economies. People are always in and out there, irregardless of what's happening around the world. So you can't go wrong investing on those islands. Now, there are other islands that, like Exuma, but you know, Exuma is Exuma. Exuma prices right now for lots are higher than what you would find, let's just say, in Southern Eleuthera or Abaco. And like I say, if something happens, you could go Eleuthera and find a job and live in your place. You could go Abaco, find a job and live in your place, because how independent those economies are, and also the returns as far as appreciation in those locations. If you buy in the right spot and a development comes, your value through the roof.
Yeah.
So I'm actually genuinely surprised that you didn't say Grand Bahama or anything like that. Okay, that no face didn't tell me everything I need to know.
Okay, here's the thing. Grand Bahama values have surged based upon the promises of the hotel and the expansion of the shipyard.
Yeah.
So there are the
Okay.
rental properties in Grand Bahama are getting rented, right? But my thing is, I'm a doomsday prepper. Sorry. So I look at, what's going on with our climate. I believe in like elevation. We know what happened. So my thing is, I wouldn't take a chance
I got you.
on certain locations. That's my personal view. Because I have clients who purchased in Grand Bahama investment properties, apartments, and it has not gone the way it would have gone if it was in another location. Right.
I got you. I got you. Yeah. So now we're talking about rent, right? There's a growing concern and a growing call for like the government to do something about rent. Like where you see rent is, I don't want to say getting out of control, but
It is
yeah,
in some
all right.
instances.
Yeah, like,
And I'm a rental specialist, and I'm
yeah.
like, oof.
Yeah,
oof,
I didn't want to say it like that, but if you could say it,
oof,
then yeah, it's getting out of
oof.
control. What do you think is like the main cause of it? It's just a lack of supply? Because I know a lot of renters, they basically try to use the rent to cover their mortgages, stuff like that.
Yeah. It's a business, and I think a lot of people seem to not understand that it is a business.
It's not charity.
You
Like,
know, it's a business. Of course, we have some landlords who are fortunate enough to not look at it like that. And for those ones, I wish if we had more than that would be great. But for a lot of people, for them, it's survival. I made this investment. I decided I want to do this. This has to pay for itself because that's just how it works around the world, you know? So for a lot of home property owners and even people who are trying to make purchases, let me give you an example. 5 years ago, you could have purchased a duplex on Carmichael, brand new duplex, maybe say 245, 250, right? Today, you're looking at 350 to 400,000 a duplex on Carmichael.
serious thing.
How can someone price their rent on the prices 5 years ago?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So that is what we're facing. And remember, like I say, these people are paying the same prices for building supplies as everybody else, irregardless of where they're building.
Me and a friend was talking about it. We was talking about like how in the States, you have some families, they'll buy like a big lot, like a big open lot. They'll set up like 5 trailers on it. And basically the whole family just live in one big compound or whatever.
And that makes sense.
And like, yeah, it does. Like, it does make sense. It's very economical because like, and I understand why they do that now because
I've seen other families do it in Nassau too, on other islands, but it just takes one person in the family to be serious about it. And say, hey, we see what's going on. We need to get together. We need to figure this out. Now, in a lot of instances, it may involve one person standing in the gap for the other people because banks, they're not friendly to those type of arrangements because people get married, people die, a plethora of things can happen. So they kind of limit how many persons would be able to join in on a venture of that sort. So it just really takes the family being serious about doing it. But it works. I've seen it work for a lot of people. It works.
You gotta get your family together. You gotta make up with the cousins and be like, hey, we gotta survive.
Yeah, it works.
That
I've
type of
seen
situation might actually
great wealth created like that with families who buy acre and split it and to help each other.
sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah, you got to think outside the box.
So as you would have touched on earlier, so property owners are also dealing with higher construction costs. And as you said,
Labor costs too. Labor costs is double, sometimes triple.
they dealing with construction, they dealing with labor, insurance, maintenance, real property taxes, water tables, hurricane risks. So what is it that people underestimate about owning property?
I think the biggest thing that people underestimate is the cost of maintenance. And you don't realize it until you get into it, which is why for me, like I don't believe in living where I own. Because when I live where I own, the money I spend would be astronomical, has been nonstop because you want to maintain, right? So I made a decision many years ago. I'm not living where I own. So my focus is doors, okay? Doors. I don't care what the doors is. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to keep my purchase low, use that income to support my lifestyle, and I rent where I live.
You know what you sound like? I don't know if you know this guy. Have you ever heard about Grant Cardone?
I've watched a lot of his videos, and
When
he
you
is
said
smart.
that, it's like I was listening to Grant
At
Cardone
this
just
point in
now.
time, I can't afford to own where I live.
Yeah, because he said that,
I
right?
need rent money.
And mind you, I never really like it is a topic someone has asked me about. Like I am not too versed in the rental space, so I didn't want to give no input on it. But some
Right.
people have asked me like if it makes sense to rent versus buy, and I was like,
It
that is
depends on it depends.
It depends on
Yeah.
your strategy. I ain't gonna lie.
It
It
depends on
depends
the
on
strategy.
it depends on your
If
strategy.
you have one 2-bed apartment, you're paying $1,200, miss, be quiet. Pay that $1,200. Go keep buying doors. Stay focused.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a good landlord. Stay focused.
And I think too, it's like lifestyle too. Like for example, some people they might travel for work, or they might decide, they want to pitch up and go to another city to go live, or another country to go live. And if you're tied down with a property, that's going to be more difficult for you to do.
Definitely. And a lot of people find themselves in that situation, trying to figure out what to do when they get opportunities, especially abroad.
And I think I like that strategy. And I say, just as she was explaining it and Lamont mentioned Grant Cardone, I was like, man, I heard the strategy before. But
I learned that from my investment clients.
yeah,
I watch how they do it. I'm like, hold on, they onto something. They onto something.
hold on.
Let me just learn. Let me just soak it in.
Making it make sense. See, to the audience, y'all get $1 million value right now.
Because if I fall sick, my income coming in, it don't make a difference.
Y'all make sure to hit up Rothia because she right now giving y'all all type of game. But that's really an interesting way to do it. I remember just going back to the whole one property can buy the next thing. I remember a friend of mine who does construction was putting me on to some game where it's like you could actually just buy one property, one huge property, and just put one particular house on it, wait for the rent from that house to just go and purchase the next one, and then, just so on and so forth. And I thought that was a very interesting strategy. Do you think
Or you could even start smaller. You could buy a lot. Let's just say you work for government. And with government, certain financing institutions allow you to make purchases with no deposit. And let's just say you save up 40K. I'm just saying, buy the lot, build right away. Your equity is going to be through the roof. So you could almost go back immediately and do something else.
I got you.
It's just a strategy.
And also, just for the viewers to understand, by equity, right? Explain that just a bit. As in, now that I've gotten the government lot and the equity is now through the roof, how could I utilize that for myself?
Okay, so your equity is the difference between what your lot is valued in today's market and what you owe the bank for it. So for example, let's just say your property is valued at $200,000, but you owe the bank $60K. right? That means you would have a total of $140,000 worth of equity. Generally, banks look at to between 70 to 80% of equity. So your 140 that you had, the bank may say, hey, you could draw out $80,000 now. You could draw out 90,000. And sometimes they would give that to you cash. So now you could take that cash, and that's how you become a cash buyer. Use that cash to buy something else. Now you could really bully somebody because you sure about your money. You understand? And that puts you in a smart position to do better investments. You may decide that you want to pull it out to start a business. No, it's still the same property. They're just giving you the money in your hand to do something with it.
Makes sense. I like that. So, Rothia, for someone who wants to get started in property, right? And when think about buying their first piece of property, what is 3 practical steps they could take this year towards that goal?
Biggest thing, I would say get pre-qualified. Find out what your buying power is. Once you determine that, are you happy with where they put you at? Do you need to increase your income to put yourself in a better position to be able to make a purchase? Once you made that decision, then you go ahead and you save. Buying a property is not easy. You have people who are in a position where they qualify, they have the money, they decide to make a purchase and they decide upon the wrong property.
Yeah.
Sometimes they may go into under contract. The owner get upset because the lawyers take too long. The owner decides to move on to somebody else. So you literally have to put yourself in a mental state to say, irregardless of what it is that I go through, I am going to close. And I'm not going to stop until I close on a purchase.
Yeah. Because I can imagine, especially like when you make it a huge purchase this property, do you ever come across people who have like buyer's regret? What they call it?
All the time.
like,
All the time.
like I always wonder that, right? I always wonder like when people buying properties, like if there's ever something in the back of their mind, like, oh, I shouldn't get this.
Listen, when that first mortgage payment come out, almost everybody is have buyer's remorse.
It's like ran in too bad, living in your
It's
parents'
like,
and all that bad,
ouch. Because hold on, my mortgage come out, and guess what? I ain't in the house yet. I still paying rent.
Yeah.
In a lot of instances, they're still paying rent. So literally 95% of the
I
time,
got you.
it's an ouch moment.
I got you. And I think people need to hear that, right? Because
It's an ouch moment.
the reason I think people need to hear that is a lot of people don't go into things because they think they're going to be alone in it. Like the problem you're facing, it isn't a problem that no one else have ever faced or a situation no one has ever felt before. It's not unique to you. Nothing new under the sun. Like,
No. It is not easy. It is not easy. You just have to do what you can, prepare yourself. Understand that you may have the tuna and rice, for a couple of weeks.
Little
But
fire
that's
engine.
okay. But that's okay. Once you get over, you'll be good.
We have to talk about this though. So we talked about rent, we talked about buying houses, right? So now what I'd like to talk about is the whole situation where, they're trying to stabilize the rent and have like tenant protection. Now, this is where it gets a little touchy. Because do you think something like that could really help the Bahamas, or would it create a new problem?
Honestly, the tenant protection, basically, from my understanding, is the government's way of regulating the standard of apartments and the standard of living in apartments, which means that the owner has to maintain their property at a specific standard. That, remember, everything is dollars and cents. That costs money. So my question would be, how will the government assist owners to be able to increase the standard of the properties and be able to balance offering properties at reasonable rents? So I would really want to see like how that's tailored and if they are serious about it, because presently our Rent Control Act only governs properties that are valued below $75,000. And we know ain't much property, especially in New Providence. Well, we can say in a building in New Providence value $75,000. So the question then goes into play. How will they amend the Rent Control Act to protect renters, and what protections will they give to landlords? At this present moment, Bahamian tenants are very aware of their rights. The courts are more tenant friendly than they are landlord friendly. So you found that there are many landlords who decide that the rental is a business for them, because when they end up on the losing end of the equation, they lose tens of thousands. So you put yourself in a position where you're either going to do business or you're going to put yourself in a position where you are prepared to accept losses. So it would be really interesting in seeing how they frame or what it is that they're trying to accomplish from the new proposed act. And I haven't really seen any of the depth that basically lays out what the proposal is. So I can't really say much about it until we see the legislation.
Definitely, it would be a very touchy, topic, because although tenants do need protection, right? You also have to keep in mind from the landlord's perspective.
Yeah, you got to
There's
balance it out. You got to balance it out.
a lot of landlords, because I've seen it where a lot of landlords, they did things right on their end, and a lot of tenants, did some very wild things. I've seen where some tenants would have like destroyed property and taken advantage of the landlord's kindness and things
Put
like that.
cement in the pipes.
Put cement
Jesus.
in the pipes, okay, so now you realize the landlord has gotten tired of some of the things that you keep on doing and now is sending the eviction. You know what? Cool. I'm going to go, but first I'm going to destroy all inside your house, and I'm going to leave in the middle of the night to where you can't catch me or find me or whatever. You could take the deposit. I don't care.
I'm going to run the clock because I know the court system where I'm going to owe you thousands and I'm still not going to pay you.
Yeah.
So it has hit these things where it's like, yes, I understand tenant protection, but also you got to keep in mind landlord protection too. So everything has to balance out. And I think I'm also very interested in how they're going to.
Me too. Would love to see it. All my owners are like, have you heard anything? I haven't seen anything. I haven't heard anything. How is this going to just chill and wait? Calm down.
So we are nearing the end of today's podcast, and we have to ask this question, right? What is one uncomfortable truth about real estate in the Bahamas that more Bahamians need to hear?
What I will say is it's a positive. This is the Bahamas, not Bahamas. You need to understand how privileged you are to be able to own any piece of the rock in the Bahamas. It doesn't matter where it is. Like literally, we are a sought after region in the world. So literally any piece of real estate that you're able to purchase and get in your name, I would say do it. I know sometimes when we talk about real estate, it's bleak and listen, this is the Bahamas. Make sure you get a piece of the rock of the Bahamas.
That's good. That's good. You heard it
Makes
here,
sense.
folks. So once again, we'd like to thank you, Miss Rothia, for joining us on this podcast and letting other Bahamians understand more about housing, how to get their house, how to finance, and even how to protect and maintain. We very much appreciate and value your insight. Can you give us your socials and tell people how is it that they can contact you if they want to learn more?
You could contact me via phone. WhatsApp is always preferred. 242-455-5741. My website is www.bahamasinvestmentrealtor.com. You can also find me on Facebook, rothia.bahamasinvestmentrealtor, any one of those mediums, or you can email me at rothiapf@gmail.com.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. With that being said, we'd like to thank you guys for joining us for yet another CryptoNoobz podcast, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Have a
Thank
good
you for
one.
having me.
And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for being there.
All right.